read that reading makes you more empathetic. It's a way to escape your life. It can take you to faraway lands or put you in other people's shoes. It can even keep your brain healthy, help you sleep better, or inspire you. In today's show, we're going to be talking to Jenna Greene about her book, Renew, from the Reborn Marks Series. Don't go away. We'll be right back with Jenna Greene. If you are just joining us, then welcome to Book with Bridgetti. I'm your host, Bridgetti Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa, and our live stream is made possible by StreamYard and Be Live Media. A special warm welcome to you, our viewers. This is an audience-centric show, so whether you're watching us over on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, also over on Amazon Live, please, if you've not watched the show before, let us know in the comments. We would love to give you a shout out. So a very warm welcome. And again, if you missed the introduction, our featured author for today is Jenna Greene. I'm all about helping people level up. And one of the ways that you can level up your live stream, who doesn't appear on live streams today? Everyone's on Zoom or Teams or something. So if you're looking to level up your live stream, I use the Logitech Brio camera. It's got the trademarked right light high dynamic energy technology that helps you, and it adjusts the light automatically no matter what your lighting conditions. So I find that that is super, super helpful for live streaming. And I also am currently using the Samsung CO1U condenser studio microphone. Just a fun fact, Samsung introduced the world's first USB condenser microphone. If you don't want to splurge out on a huge big condenser microphone, you can also, as an alternative, this is the Rode lavalier microphone, and it's got a windshield, and that prevents you from getting outside noise. So there's a tip for you on live streaming. So more about our author today is Jenna Greene. She's a young adult / children's author from Alberta, Canada. She's also a middle school teacher when she isn't writing or reading. And she tells me that she enjoys dancing, crafting, and napping. Who doesn't like napping? With that, let's invite Jenna to the show, shall we? Jenna, welcome to the show. So glad to have you on Books with Bridgetti.
Hi, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's such a pleasure. And we're coming from two different continents. I'm in South Africa and you're in Canada. Whereabouts in Canada are you?
So southern Alberta. So we're actually really close to the United States. I think it's like an hour and a half drive to the border. Um, if anyone knows where Calgary, Alberta is, the big Calgary Stampede that is pretty famous, we're about 2 hours south of that. So that's really the easiest way to describe where in Canada I am.
Nice. So I'm keen to know because I have some friends in Canada and they often go shopping, hopping over to the US. Do you ever do that sort of thing?
I'm not a big shopper. I know my sister goes pretty much every month. Obviously, with COVID and things, it slowed her down a little bit, but she usually goes down to Montana a couple times a year. I'm just not a big shopper. I don't have a lot of time, and I really don't want to take a 5-year-old, roaming through the malls. I think she'd last like 8 minutes. So
It would absolutely not be worth it. I think most of us are like that. I remember when my boys were much younger, as well. You know, it was not my favorite thing. Children do not like stores. It's not their favorite thing. And I must say, you know, with COVID and the technology that we've got now, the ability to shop online, I'm all about online shopping. It works perfectly well.
I love it. And my kid's just not a walker. I mean, I tried to get her into hiking and the meltdowns we used to have, and I'm like, you cannot be tired. We can still see the car. It's just not her.
Not a thing.
No.
Not a thing. Oh my goodness. So tell me a little bit about you. How did you become an author? You know, did have you always written? Is it something that started later in life? What inspired you to get into writing?
I still somewhere. I'm not sure where they are right now, but I still have the little stories I wrote in grade one and grade two that are typed on those old printers with the little hole punch paper on the side, where it's like 5 lines. But I'm pretty sure that a teacher, when I was maybe grade one, grade two, told my parents, oh, she's very creative. She could be a writer. And that little nugget stayed in my brain forever. My parents, not writers. My dad's a scientist. I don't think he's read a book willingly. Maybe the TV guide back in the day, but they were like, "She's gonna be a writer. Okay, what do we do?" And they got me little journals and notebooks, and I would just craft little stories. I was a great traveler. We'd go on car trips, back in the day, and my sister would be miserable the whole time. But I would have two Shira dolls, Shira, Princess of Power, and I could entertain myself with stories I made up for like days. My mom and dad loved me as a traveler. Two Shiras, we're good to go. So, even before I could physically write, I was a storyteller. And I guess it just always went from there. When I was a kid, I was going to be a fairy princess and a writer, and then a journalist and a writer, and then a zoologist and a writer. And the writer part never left. That's always been along for the journey. I need a bit of stability. Yeah, that I need I need another job because I need that stability and that. But writer was always there and always will be.
That is amazing. That is amazing. So you are a teacher as well. Um, how do do you think that writing is something that a child naturally has or develops, or is it something that teachers could stimulate as well? Now, I know the teaching's changed over the years. I mean, I was just the talker in the classroom. My every single report said she talks too much. And instead of nurturing that and saying, you'll become a great public speaker, it was like, can you shut up already? You're just disrupting the class here.
I think they all have stories to tell. I taught middle school for years and years and years, over a decade, the majority of my teaching career. And I kind of forget that I'm not in middle school anymore, and I still write it in my bios and things. But I work with the littles now, so just starting to learn to read and write. And they're like, I don't have anything to say. I don't have anything to write. I'm like, are you kidding me? You came off the bus and talked to me for 17 minutes straight. You have stories to tell. You just have to instill them in them a belief that their story is worth telling, in that they're like, well, I just told you about this robot I made last night, and I thought it'd be funny if I got it to clean my room. That's not a story. Yes, it is. It could be. You have to have the faith and the belief that you could make that into a tale and share it and physically write it down. So teachers do have a role, but it's really just encouraging what's already there. The kids have the nuggets, and you just encourage them and say, yeah, it's there. Now just bring it out.
I think that's been a shift in education for me, and I think also in styles of parenting over the years. I think parents encourage children a lot more when they see that they have a natural ability for something, be it writing or anything else, than it used to be many years ago, which is fantastic. How did you decide on the genre you want to write about? Um, was there any kind of thought process in that, or did you just how did you decide on the genre?
I'm pretty well known for this saying that the story picks the author. So it's not like I went out hunting. I'm like, I'm going to write a Western and I'm going to sit here until I'm inspired and get an idea and I write a Western. It's more like you're just sitting and you see something or you hear something and an idea pops in your head. And you either write it or you don't. That's your choice, but that's what picks you. Now, my Imagine series, I was 17 when I came up with the idea for it. So it's not that surprising that it's a YA. I was still a YA, right? And obviously then I went on through university, became a teacher, and then I started working with teens. And that's what genre I was reading. That's what genre of kids that I'm working with. And I really like YA. It's what I personally like to read. Now that I'm with, the younger students, and I have a young daughter and all her crazy friends, although she's the craziest. Now I'm starting to really get interested in picture books and how creative and fun and funny they can be. There are a lot more picture books about underwear and butts than I would have thought possible, but they're hilarious and they're great. Now I want to write one. So life kind of, things shift in your life and that might change, but honestly, the story, it comes to you. The characters might come first, the plot might come first, but the exact moment or the exact source of where these creative ideas come from, it's a bit of a mystery. I can say it was triggered by a joke or a meme or a name on a sign, but what actually triggered it, it's really an interesting thing.
Now I have to ask you, you are a mom of a 5-year-old, and they're usually quite busy. You are a teacher, a wife, you've got a home to run. Where do you find time to write? How do you do
I,
it?
I don't clean, and that saves you a lot of time. If you just live with the chaos, yeah. Yeah, I am a mom. Only I have one, so if I had more, that would, I don't know how I'd fit it in. But, she's very independent, but also a lot of writing is the daydreaming part, the sitting and thinking. And I work out of town, so I actually have an hour drive. And so, of course, I'm focused on the road. I'm not a danger on the road, but you have thoughts throughout your day, or I'll be sitting and coloring because, man, do I love coloring with my little girl. And I can be thinking, what might this character think? What might this character say? And so then when it comes time to write, and I actually have time to write, I don't have to sit there and think, okay, what's going to happen in this scene? I already know what's going to happen in this scene, and then I can just sit and write it. Now, a lot of writers, they need to sit and write 3, 4, 5 hours at a time. And that's what works for them. It doesn't work for me. I don't have that kind of time, nor do I think I could sit still that long. So I'll write maybe 45 minutes a night, maybe an hour and a half if I'm lucky. But, those minutes add up. Instead of waiting all week to get 4 hours on a weekend, I can get, a half an hour every day of the week. And that actually will equal more. And I'm quite kind to myself if it's report card season and I'm swamped and I don't open my laptop that night. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. Because, eventually in the summer, I'll have lots of time. Or, there'll be highs and lows. And it's okay if some days I write for 10 minutes and some days an hour and some days not at all. I don't put a lot of pressure on myself, except just to try as often as I can to open that laptop and see what comes out.
I was just thinking about what you said about creating time and allowing time for yourself to be creative. I used to be very OCD about cleaning stuff around the house myself. And as I've gotten older, I've realized, you know what, if you dust today, the dust can be back tomorrow. So what you said is so true. It's just gaining perspective on what's more important, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and once you gain that perspective, you can actually gain a lot of time in your day if you're not doing tasks that suck up time. I mean, if you had to wash dishes 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day, that would take up a huge amount of time instead of just piling them up and putting them in the dishwasher at the end of the day or doing one dish run, in a day. So there's ways that you can then carve out time for something that you enjoy, to be creative or to write. Because a lot of people find that and then do you find that you write sort of in chunks during the day? Are you more creative in the morning, in the evening, or do you just take it as it comes?
So during the school year, I mean, I get up at 5:45, 5:30, 5:45, and I'm out the door at 6:30. So not a lot of time. I'd have to get up at like 3 in the morning to write in the morning. And obviously during the school day, there's not a minute. Like if I had 5 minutes, I'd pee or eat or make a cup of tea. So it's really more when supper's done, my kid's in bed, my husband is watching TV or doing something. I'll sit for an hour and get some writing done. Weekends, maybe, a little half an hour here, half an hour there. And in the summer, then it just changes completely. So I won't write maybe 4 hours in a row, but I'll write 4 hours in total. So it changes throughout the year, but it has to be at night just because I'm busy in the day. And I don't think I would have, even if I had an hour free at lunchtime, I don't think I could write anyway, because I'd be thinking about my math lesson or errands I have to run after school or who's picking up our kid, right? So at the end of the day, everything's done. Okay, and I'm just sitting and write.
Awesome. So the Reborn Marks series, how did that come about? Like, tell us a little bit about it, and also about the two books in the series.
Sure. So the first book is Reborn, and I was
Put it on
coming.
the screen so we can see that cover.
There you
There we
go.
go. Beautiful cover, that.
Yeah, I didn't design it, but cover designers have magic.
Did you actually hire somebody to do that? Or was it a specific picture that you chose, or was it designed for you?
So this series was published through Foundation Books. They're amazing. They're out of the
Yeah.
United States, and they hire a cover artist. Like I can give feedback and I give ideas. And her name is Dawn Dominique, and she did the cover design. And she came up with something way better than I could have ever imagined, described, whatever. So like they have top notch. And even if you see the second book, the covers kind of there's like a continuity to it.
Yeah. So was that the same designer?
Same designer. Yeah.
So I'm always curious. I always like to ask authors, how did you convey what you envisaged for the covers to get the desired result?
I don't. They always ask, like even with my Imagine series, they have through Champagne Books, they have you fill out a form, and they're trying to get you to come up with themes. And I'm like, I can't draw stick people. I don't know how to. Right. So I try my best. And then somehow these amazing artists are like, okay, I think this is what she's trying to say. She said dark. And I get, right. They do just the illustrators and cover artists, and they're a field. I don't know how they do it, but they're pretty remarkable. But the series though, when I first, it's probably one of the clearest, when you come up with an idea for a story, it's probably one of the clearest in my mind. I was at a writers conference in Calgary, Alberta. It's called When Words Collide. They do it every year, world famous. And I just, when you're coming home from a conference, you feel very inspired. You feel like you've been surrounded by creativity all weekend, and you're just like, yeah. And I was driving home, and I think I pulled over to get some gas or something, and I'm flipping through my phone, and there's all these memes about gingers. And I have a very close friend who's a redhead. And, all these memes about gingers. And I'm like, well, how would I feel if I had red hair and I was a ginger? And I was like, well, I do have all these freckles here. And man, do they annoy me. And, kids always are counting them and trying to play dot to dot on my face. Or, my kid was like 1 or 2, and she's like, Mom, did you know you have spots on your face? Daddy doesn't. Are you sure? Like, can you get rid of them? And so, all you think about is like, oh, these darn freckles. And what if that was something that you were judged on? I mean, most people aren't really, and that kind of triggered an idea. What if, you lived in a society where marks on your face meant something bad, or at least meant you were lower class, or meant you were judged? And that's how this series was really born. We have a character, her name's Lexel. She's 16. She starts off the series, she's being sold into slavery because she has some marks that appeared on her skin that mark her as a reborn, someone that has lived previous lives. So every one of these marks on her skin, on her face, is a mark of a previous life. Now, in her society, if you've lived previous lives, well, you're a little spoiled there. You got to live all these other lives. It's not fair. So they are forced to be slaves for once-borns, people who've only ever had one life, to make their life a little easier. So, she starts off this book, and she's just sold into slavery. She was free, and now she's completely not. And so huge life change for her. And she has to deal with all these emotions, all these events, all these situations, and try and figure out how to deal with it. Now, I was not aware at the time, but subconsciously, there was some other things going on in my life. I wrote half of this book, the first in the series, when my mom was sick. I took a break in the middle, and I wrote the second half after she passed away. Now, I did not set out to write this book and say, like, here's all these emotions about people you've lost. But writing is what it is. And if you're going through stuff, things come out. So there's a lot of themes in the book about connection to the past, connection to previous lives of your own, connection to people you have lost, messages and meanings from other parts of the world, not this, the linear world, but other things. And so when I went back and I edited, I found it surprising how powerful some of the emotions were. I was like, I didn't know I was that good of an author, but I think it was really inspired by some things that were going on in my world. Anyone can write about sadness, but because we've all been sad, but there's a little bit more of a poignancy when you're in the middle of grief and trauma. So it's really close to my heart, this series. I mean, I'm a writer. I love everything I write. Some of it's gold and some of it's that will never see the light of publication. But this series really is close to my heart for just so many reasons. After the first draft came out, that's when we got our daughter. And so then you have that idea of like rebirth, renew, relife. So it's a really interesting series, and it's really interesting how it played out in the real world and in the fictional world.
That's amazing. I mean, that is such an amazing backstory, and it's one of the reasons why I love interviewing authors, because there's no way that you could know this much detail from just reading the book, because it now makes you want to go and read the book. You kind of understand where authors come from. Speaking about that, do you have a section out of the book Renew that you could read for us?
Absolutely. I'm going to grab that in a second, but I did want to just show you from Reborn there's a little
I'm
line
going
and
to
it's
put it
really
on, hold on a
small.
second, I'm going to put it on full screen.
I doubt you'll be able to see it, but it says, "No one can truly die, whomever once have lived." And that's a little dedication to my mom, without being like but also anyone. You're never gone as long as there's memories, because you've made an impact on this world, right?
Absolutely. We've all made some kind of an impact, and sometimes we suffer from this feeling insignificant, but no one is ever insignificant. We all leave our mark on somebody's lives. The people in our community, we don't live in isolation. We affect the people around us, and now we've become a global society. There's so many people that I've met online that I may never meet in person, but boy, they've impacted my life. They're part of my circle now, and one of the reasons I so enjoy live streaming. So I'd love for you to read a section out of Renew.
Awesome. So Renew, in the first book, without giving too much away, Lexel is lost her freedom, and at first she's kind of complacent about it. She's like, "This is just how life is. Like, it sucks, but I guess this is my fate now." But she's very nurturing. She raised her little brother for as long as she was allowed to, and she's sold into slavery with a little girl named Sira. And so the motivation for herself isn't as much as the motivation to protect this little girl. So somehow they get to a form of sanctuary. I won't say any more than that. But she doesn't save everyone. So there's this guilt with her of those that didn't make it to safety, that are still enslaved. So she's here, she's doing okay right now, but people she knew, people she considered friends, everyone else of her kind is still back there. So in Renew, there's different emotions, right? It's not so much the fear and trying to get somewhere. It's the guilt, and almost survivor's guilt in a way of, I'm safe and you're not. And so I'm going to read a little passage where she's kind of going through that and remembering someone she had to sacrifice, she had to leave behind. So she's just doing some laundry right now, but clutching her sodden apron to her chest, dampening her shirt, Lexel closed her eyes, willing away the remnants of the vision. Her effort failed. Behind sealed lids, Kita's visage was firmly etched. Nose wrinkled, Lexel opened her eyes and gazed at the river. The water shifted, forming an image of Kita being dragged from the auction platform. Her wrists were bound with wire, and a rope lead was fastened around her neck. Her lips were sealed tight, jaw twitching at the base, as she was attached like a mule to the rear of a cart and led away. The image faded. Though poignant, it wasn't accurate. Most reborns were sold young. Lexel's situation of nearly achieving adulthood before her memory marks appeared was rare. Now that the water was clear, she couldn't help but glance at her reflection. An act she only did in private, even though the 7 dark spots on her skin no longer dictated the course of her life. Not now. Not here in the unclaimed cities where reborns sought a free life. As she stared at herself, her appearance changed. more marks appearing, her hair darkening in color until Kita's face replaced her own. Giving her head an abrupt shake, she scuttled back 3 full steps. Kita was everywhere, and it wasn't hard to conclude why. The only reason she was safe was because of Kita's sacrifice. Lexa was free, Kita a slave. Had she been beaten? Most likely. Brutalized, terrorized, humiliation, starvation. Maybe she'd been sold into a much crueler master. Perhaps Kita was even dead. Lexel sobbed, clapping her hand against her mouth to cut off the sound. As her entire body shook, she drew inward, cuddling the apron into her lap as she leaned forward and bent her knees. As she sank, she slid her arms into the mud by the shore. Guilt, combined with anguish, rattling her teeth and nipping at her neck. She was a traitor. Months prior, she had made a promise. She'd promised to rescue Kita from servitude. Though she'd never spoken it aloud, it was a pact she'd meant to keep. Except she hadn't, because keeping that promise meant giving up so much.
Wow, I could just listen to you all day. Have you done an audiobook, by the way?
No, we haven't. My publisher's very good about quality, and they're not going to release anything unless it's the best quality. And so it's kind of been an investigation for the last few years on how to make sure if we do an audiobook, that it is not only good, but it is great.
Because your voice is so soothing, You've got a very pleasant voice and your enunciation's on point. It's just, I really enjoyed listening to you read that.
Thank you. It's how I get the kids to pay attention. Yay, fractions.
Oh my goodness. That's an unfair advantage because you're a teacher.
Well, I was a drama kid too. I did theater.
That helps too. So I'm going to ask you, for anyone who is a new up and coming author, you seem to have mastered the art of compelling storytelling. Do you have a tip or two for any new upcoming authors about how to become a compelling storyteller?
First of all, just write and don't look back. If you write the same page over and over again and keep editing it, you'll never get anywhere. And if you write something and then read it right away, it is going to sound like crap because you're so close to it. So you need to write, get all the way to the end of that story, and then circle back. And by then you have some distance and you'll be like, oh, it's actually pretty good. And of course, there's going to be stuff to work on, but that's what editing's for. The idea that writers edit once is a myth. It's like 47 times. And each time it gets a little bit better, a little bit crisper, gets a little better, right? To write a story that people want to read, you need to write a story you want to read. Don't try to copy anyone. Don't try to go with any genres that you don't care about. So I've never written a Western, and I probably never will. Nothing against that, but it's just not my style, right? Write what you like to read, write what you want to hear, make a story that makes you laugh or cry or, gasp, and then just have a little fun with it. And don't worry if what anyone else does. When I started, I was like, well, everyone else writes like this. Oh, well, everyone writes for like 5 hours and I sit for like 10 minutes and then I go color. Oh, well, right? It's okay. You do you, but just write and don't look back. You got this.
I like that. That's very, very, very good advice. So my final question to you is, did you self-publish? Did you go the traditional way? And why did you make your choice?
I'm a pretty busy person and not so good with the technology. So my books are all published through either Champagne Books or Foundation Books, depending on the series. And I just want to write the story. I don't want to format. I don't, and I know a lot of self-published authors, and they want that control and they like it. I just don't have that kind of time in my day to be formatting and all that stuff. I'd rather just write, and I totally trust the publishers that I have. They've been amazing. Um, Two publishers, but then two different kind of subsets of fantasy. The Imagine series more high fantasy. Uh, the Reborn Marks series is more low fantasy, dystopian. You know, but I've managed to find publishers and editors and publicists that I love and I trust. So I'm good.
I was going to say to you, final question. Do you recommend getting a publicist and why?
Uh, it, yeah. I'm not shy, but I'm awkward about promoting myself. Like I'm a talker. No one from my childhood would believe this because I was silent in class till 12th grade. But I'm a talker. But there's something a little awkward about being like, "Hey, look at me, I'm great," um, and it's nice to have someone else do that. And again, I am busy. I am not a full time writer. I have to work. And so I need someone else go spending their day finding me blogs to appear on and TV shows and radio spots and to do press releases. And then I can just focus on writing.
That is awesome. So which publicist have you gone with?
So I with Mickey Mickelson, Creative Edge Publicity, and he does wonderful, wonderful stuff, and
Awesome.
gets me connected with lots of people that I wouldn't have thought to be like, even places I never thought to make the connection with. Not even like, oh, he can make that connection better than me. I wouldn't have thought of it. So he can think of things, and then you also meet fellow authors through that publicity, if we have the same publicist, right? And then now I can start collaborate with this person and maybe write a book with them or get in a short story with this person, or so it's a really nice to have a community.
That is wonderful, and I totally agree with you. So anyone out there, and Syed has just joined us um, on the live stream on Amazon. And Syed, we were talking to Jenna Greene, and we were talking about her Reborn Marks series, an excellent choice. So go and check it out on Amazon. I have actually put that book in the carousel. We spoke about both her books in that series. So please go and check that out, Sayed. And thanks very much. I hope I'm not butchering your name. My apologies if I am, but have a look at the book. It's highlighted in the carousel right now. So go and have a look at that. And if you've missed this live stream, you can catch the replay. Jenna told us the backstory about the book, the series, why she wrote it, how she wrote it. Very interesting backstory, and that's why we do these interviews, to get you the backstories from our amazing authors. Thank you so much for joining us, Jenna. Thank you for joining us on Books with Bridgetti today. Totally enjoyed talking to you. And Said, again, my apologies if I'm butchering your name. I do not intend that. But go and have a look at the book that is highlighted in the carousel. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us today. Appreciate that you have. And we'll see you back on the next episode of Books with Bridgetti. For now, it's goodbye from me in Cape Town, South Africa.